Hi, I'm Darlene Carman, and welcome to the show. I have always been fascinated by the diversity and uniqueness of trees. I grow bonsai to better understand how trees can thrive within the confines of pots. I read Peter Wollobin's book, The Hidden Life of Trees, about the way trees communicate to help them survive. The book prompted me to make trees the topic of my workshop with children at Hands in the Arts in Sunnyvale on May 19th. Later, I will show samples of California native trees painted with vegetables. We have a tree expert who will talk about how trees adapt to their various environments. Mike Alexander is a seasoned volunteer docent for the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. He also is a photographer and has 20 years experience as a volunteer camera operator for the Media Center. Hey.
Hi, Darlene.
Good to see you again.
Nice to be here.
You know, my husband and I have done a lot of hiking with the Open Space District, and each preserve has its own charms. I haven't visited all of them, but a lot of them I have. So which ones are your favorite and what makes them special?
Well, my favorites are the ones that are closest to where I live. I hate spending time getting back and forth. So I live in Palo Alto, and there are preserves all around the intersection of Page Mill and Skyline. For example, Montebello, Skyline Ridge, Russian Ridge. I lead earthquake hikes at the Los Trencos Preserve. So any of those that are straight up the hill from Palo Alto are my favorites. The others have certain charms too, but I don't get to them very often.
And some of these places you go over and over again, and you told me that you see different things. I think it was Montebello you were talking about, that every time you go there you see something new.
Well, I was doing a series of hikes last year based on a certain tree, and to be able to do it well, I was doing a hike in each of the 4 seasons, and I needed to know ahead of time what everything was that I was going to see around the trees that I was taking people to see. So I had to hike every week for almost a year, pretty much to the same place, and it never got tiresome at all, because it's always different, always different. The weather's different, the flowers are different, everything's different each time.
Oh, yes. I can't remember my favorites. It just, I think it's the time of year. So if you're looking for wild flowers, that's, maybe there's a certain place you go for that. I don't even remember. I just, I liked it all. So, but you know, people don't have to go to the woods or to the parks to see some magnificent trees, because I know that you have some very great pictures and you got them close at home.
Yeah, so this is a picture that I took at Russian Ridge Preserve of Stanford and Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and out to the bay.
Oh my gosh.
And I brought it tonight just so you could see what they call the urban forest in this area. Stanford has, this is mostly eucalyptus trees behind Hoover Tower, and mostly oak trees in the other big band there. It looks like a regular forest when viewed from this angle.
Yeah.
But it's quite a lot different than that, as you can see by the picture of my own block in Palo Alto, which should be coming up next. Yeah, here we go. So this is where I live, one of these houses along here. The neighborhood was built about the time I was born, and it was just an empty field at that point, a farmer's field. So all of these trees are new since then. Most of them are from other places. Pine trees, eucalyptus trees, liquid amber trees, other pine trees, and a few redwoods, a few oaks, right? So
variety.
That's right. There's a lot of variety, and it has a lot of benefits too. For example, I've got some pictures of birds that I'd like to show now that I've taken in the redwood tree in front of my house. This is a pair of hummingbird babies on the day that they were going to leave the nest. This was in the morning. They left the nest in the afternoon.
So you stayed all day to watch that?
No, I didn't. I didn't, but I was out there. I was out there often for several months while the nest was being built and through the whole process. In the same redwood tree, this Nuttall's woodpecker came one day and posed for me.
Adorable.
My camera is just a tiny little pocket camera.
That's it?
It doesn't have a lot of capability. It can do a lot of things, but not as well as a more elaborate camera could. So I need these guys to hold still for me to get these kinds of pictures, and often they do. In the next picture, there's a Cooper's hawk in a liquid amber tree in the backyard that comes and visits actually fairly often. I've seen this bird 3 times in the last month.
Hunting for something, I'm sure.
Well, I think they're just resting.
Oh.
They need a lot of open space to hunt. They need to be in the hills, or they need to be at the baylands, and I'm sort of halfway in between those places. So I think this is just a stop and look around. He never feeds here. But the next picture shows a Cooper's hawk in its more native environment. This is at the Arastradero Preserve, one of the Palo Alto parks, next to 280 across from Stanford. Okay. And this is right at the edge of a field, and he's just watching. Watching for his favorite rodent snack. And he stayed very still for me for a long time.
He's a beautiful bird. I know. Yeah.
I know. He gave me really quite a nice shot. And that was a blue oak in that picture there. I know it's one of your favorites.
I love blue oaks.
So, but this is where I really like to go. This is in Montebello. The view is along the San Andreas Fault. We're standing for this in the fault zone, and the fault runs out in front of us. And the headwaters for Stevens Creek, which flows to the bay in Mountain View, is here. So the water that flows off these hills begins at Stevens Creek. It runs down that canyon, turns the corner, and goes out to the bay. What's important here is that the Pacific Plate, which is on the right-hand side of the picture, the Pacific Tectonic Plate, is moving to the northwest at about the rate that a fingernail grows. But it's been doing it for many millions of years, and the geologists believe that the plates have moved past each other as much as 300 miles over the life of the fault. It means that the soils, the underground rock, the bedrock and the soils are quite a lot different on the right-hand side of this picture than they are on the left-hand picture, and that helps create different environments. So just by virtue of having the fault in the middle and this motion of the plates, we get 2 big differences between the environments for the trees on either side. And you can see that on the right-hand side, it's an evergreen forest, and those are Douglas fir trees. And on the left-hand side, there are a few Douglas firs growing, but mostly it's other trees, other circumstances.
Other species.
Other species,
yeah.
Right.
Well,
and there's a lot of overlap, but
that makes me think, trees that are in, like, around where you are, and the city streets and stuff like that, they're kind of like planted urban environment. But out in the wild here, these trees are thrown together, different species, and they're kind of, in a way, competing for the same space. So I was just wondering, like, is it a constant battle, or do they thrive and they learn how to adapt?
It's less a battle and more of a cooperative effort.
Okay.
Because these different species of trees have different needs. Let's go up the hill. Take the next picture, John. And this is on the side of Black Mountain, which was on the left-hand side of the previous picture. And it shows one of the drainages coming down the side of the mountain.
Yes.
And the trees that grow there and don't grow where there's less water, right? So to either side of this creek, there are no trees, except a few isolated ones. And this group of trees, the darker green are oaks, the lighter green are bays. The trees that have lost their leaves already, this is in September, are all Buckeyes. Out here is one very large oak all by itself. And an interesting thing about this oak, you can see at the leading edge here that there's some light green.
Yes, that's something else.
You can't tell what that is, but I've been there, and there's a little Douglas fir tree growing there, a little madrone tree growing there, some manzanita growing there.
In that same spot?
Right there under the edge of that tree.
Oh my goodness.
Completely out of place. Something about this tree has made an inviting environment for those trees to get started. They likely won't thrive or last very long, but they're there.
Do you have any bets on who's going to stay? The biggest one?
I have no bets. This one's going to stay for sure. The others, I think, will probably all fail eventually. But see the separation here between bay and oak?
Yes.
It's pretty distinct when you stand back and take a look. They have different needs. The oaks don't need so much water, so they'll be up at the edges of these things. The bays are right along the creek. They like having more water. The buckeyes can get by with very little water at all. In fact, some of these little trees down in the right-hand corner are buckeyes, just hung out there by themselves, some of which are probably 50 to 100 years old and a few feet tall, and they'll live a very long time.
Wow.
So it's a cooperative thing, really. They have different needs, and they jiggle around until they all find what's right for them. And the ones that do best in a certain place are the ones that you'll find there.
When you have a grouping of trees like this, do you think that their roots like intermingle and, you know, like in the book that I read, I mean, do you think that they intermingle and talk to each other?
Well, I don't know about talking to each other, but they communicate in a way. There are fungi in the ground called mycorrhizae that are in a codependent relationship with the trees. They get nutrition from trees, and they provide certain minerals and other needs to the trees that these fungi gather up from their own sources, right? They, and certainly for trees within a species, the mycorrhizae will help the trees balance resources, so that if one tree has more carbon or more nitrogen than one of its mates, it'll move it through the fungi underground, back and forth between the trees. They'll share these resources so that they can all thrive. And it makes possible this sort of thing. This is the Buckeye Grove that's at the top of that drainage that I just showed in the last picture. And here's a great 60-foot tall mother tree growing here. This is something Wolobin talked about in his book, the mother tree.
Yes.
It's the biggest tree in this grove, which contains dozens of Buckeye trees, and around the edges, bays and oaks. And down here in the bottom, you can see these logs are from the predecessor to this tree, which was even bigger than this one is, and its stump is out of the picture. This Buckeye, this mother tree, shares resources, no doubt, with the other Buckeye trees in this grove. And they keep the whole center area of the grove clear of any other trees mostly by tannins. Tannins, it's an astringent chemical that buckeyes have in large amounts that make the ground unacceptable, uninhabitable for a lot of other trees.
So like stay away.
Stay away. Yeah. So this is the same tree a month later, after the leaves started to come onto it in March. It's been raining, the grass is growing, the deer are here in this grove all the time at this time of year. The buckeye puts its leaves out early and photosynthesizes at a very high rate and gets everything done between February and July, and then it loses its leaves.
And the deer, of course, help themselves to this nice abundance of low foliage that they can enjoy. Right?
Actually, you usually find that the foliage is trimmed up to as high as the deer can reach. It makes for some interesting looking little trees. Yeah. So here I am standing at the base of that mother tree, which has seven of these large stems, any one of which is bigger than most of the other Buckeye trees I've ever seen, and all together in one tree. It's quite a deal.
And what is this growing on it? It's moss?
That's ordinary tree moss, most of it.
Yeah.
You tend to find it on trees that are 100 years and older. If there's enough water, if the air is healthy, the moss will be growing. It's a very good environment in Montebello for mosses, and you see it on lots of trees. So we'll see a little more moss later on. The next picture talks to this competition question of yours. This is a stand of oaks that are all very close to each other, and probably about between 50 and 100 years old. And they've, in order for each tree to get light, they've grown really quickly. Each one wants to be up at the top.
Yes.
So they're kind of competing with each other,
Yes.
but they're just spurring each other along too. You can think of them like rambunctious children, right? trying to get there first. But the thing to notice here, the reason I took this picture is the spacing between the trees, between their crowns. Like here,
Uh-huh.
you look at these live oak trees anywhere they grow, and you always see that the crowns don't intermingle. Tree A's crown will always be completely separated from tree B's.
Oh.
They grow that way. I don't know how they know to do that. How do they talk to each other? I don't think so.
Well, he does touch on that in the book, but I wouldn't be able to give you an intelligent answer.
I mean, what they do is they're aware of what they need to be aware of, and they respond to it in certain ways.
They respect each other's boundaries.
If you want to put it in human terms, that's a really good way to say it. Yeah. So on the other side of the Stevens Creek Canyon that we looked at the beginning is this Douglas Fir Forest. And in the Skyline Ridge Preserve, we found this tree growing near Lambert Creek that's left over. For some reason, the loggers who tore this place apart in the late 1800s did not take this tree. Douglas fir is a very valuable commercial tree.
Yes.
And this tree was left. So it's been growing.
Look at the trunk.
It's at least
so thick.
It'd be at least 500 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a real beauty. And it probably functions in a mother kind of way for the Douglas fir forest that's growing up around it now that we saw in that earlier picture. So.
Yeah, really nice.
So it's a delightful place to go. All of the places I've shown so far are within about 3 or 4 miles of each other, all along trails, except maybe that last one, I don't remember. This is taken from a hill. This picture is taken from a hilltop off the trail, but it's looking towards Windy Hill Preserve, which is another one of the open space preserves, which is here, where the fog is falling over the mountain. This is summer fog that makes it overcast in the Bay Area many summer mornings.
Yes.
Right? This is it flowing
Nice.
in at sunset the night before. Wallace Stegner called this a fog fall. And I think it's a terrific name for it. So it cascades over here down Windy Hill into Portola Valley, and where the fog flows like this, that's where redwood trees grow. So some of these others that we've talked about will grow there. Bays do, Douglas firs do grow where the fog falls. Buckeye trees do too. But this is the sort of thing that redwood trees need to be able to thrive. So I wanted to see that. There aren't any redwood trees at all in the Montebello Preserve. If I need redwood trees, I got to go to where the fog flows.
Now
So,
that's certainly not a redwood tree.
no, this is not a redwood tree. These mushrooms are a reminder about the mycorrhizae, the fungi that I talked about before. This is part of the reproductive phase of one type of mycorrhizae. Most of the mushrooms that you see are the fruiting body of a mycorrhizae species, and there are many beautiful ones, most of them many poisonous, some edible, but all of them part of this process that we talked about the trees sharing resources.
Yeah.
So when you're picking mushrooms, think about that. You may be interrupting this thing that the trees have going.
You have 10 minutes left. I think you wanted me to give you a warning.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Okay.
Thanks. So more tree moss here, and these others are lichens. The textbooks all say, Darlene, that these don't affect the trees, that they don't interact with the trees, that they just use the limbs of the trees as a place to grow. That's the standard wisdom.
Really?
On the subject. I have a hunch it's more complicated than that, and that someday there'll be a big news in Yahoo News that'll say, scientists discover this crucial relationship between lichens and trees. But so far, no, they're just beautiful. I have many, many pictures, and I chose this one because it had so many different things in one small space.
They're just getting along. Everybody looks healthy. I can't see the whole tree here.
Everybody's happy.
But everybody looks very, very happy, and I think that's probably maybe it helps each other. I don't know.
Oh, they interact with each other in a lot of ways, right? Trees in a forest protect each other from
Yes.
being blown down. They keep the ground wetter underneath where they are, and they all benefit from that. They make home for animal species and support understory species of shrubs and flowers and whatnot that are all connected together in a remarkably complicated network.
Yes.
It's a terrific thing. So let's take a look at a couple more pictures here. I just have three favorites here at the end. This is a valley oak tree, an evergreen deciduous oak that grows all by itself together with this rock on a hill above the trail. This man pushing a baby in a stroller has just run up to the top of Black Mountain, which is a couple miles away and a pretty good climb, and he's running back. It's a beautiful place. The next picture is of a mixed
Oh my goodness.
a mixed stand of trees
The salad.
just off the trail in Montebello, and it's got the same trees we've been talking about. Several different species of oak, bay, big leaf maple is in here.
That reddish one that you're almost pointing to, can you see that one? A little, yeah, right there.
Not sure what that is. Can't tell. I'd have to get up closer or have
Very
a better
pretty.
camera.
Yeah.
Anyway, and you can see some Douglas fir in the background there. But I took the picture because of the line here and because of
Yes.
the color.
Very nice.
You know, I carry my camera with me all the time when I walk, and when something like that shows itself to me,
Yeah.
I take it.
So,
And one last one, I think, of the
Oh.
bark of a madrone tree. They all peel their outer bark, but this one was doing it in such a charming way. I had to catch it. So
do you have the answer? I've been online trying to find out the answer as to why do they peel. And there's theories, but I wasn't able to find an answer. They say scientists do not know.
they don't know. They don't
They
agree.
just
They
do.
don't agree. There are lots of different ideas. One idea is that this exposes photosynthetic cells in the inner bark. Nobody's proved it. Nice idea. Some say it helps repel insects.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Another great
And
idea.
something about the heat.
I don't know. I think they just do it to please us.
Yeah.
Because it is such a, you know, every time you see this in the woods, you just go, ah.
Your experience
On
as
the
a
drone.
docent for all of these years, what kind of, what's the biggest maybe misconception that you've had? We're about out of time. Could you answer that one fairly quickly?
Well, the one that surprises people most is what's going on underground for the trees. They all know the trees have roots, and that the roots are there to hold them up and get water. They don't know about the mycorrhizae. That's it's a more technical.
It's complicated.
It's a more technical subject, and you can't see it. So
Yeah.
we talk about that a lot with people to help them understand how the whole forest floor is involved in making this great thing happen.
Well, it's time for me to talk about Hands on the Art. I'm very,
let's
very
do.
happy to be coming back to join Hands on the Art, and it'll be at the Sunnyvale Community Center on May 19th. The children love to experiment with the different art projects that they provide throughout the day. And for my part, I have a workshop, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I teach the children how to paint with vegetables instead of brushes. And when I first started out over 25 years ago, I started out kind of simply. And the main idea was to get the emphasis on having the tactual contact between the vegetables and the paper using the paint as a conduit. But through the years, I started adding more complications and different workshops and adding so much to it that last year I noticed, I watched the children, and I just came to the decision that my workshop was a little bit too complex. So this year I'm trying to step back a little bit and go back to the way the children really enjoy doing it without worrying about the whole total picture. You know, my idea is that we do not, in the amount of time that the children have time to paint a completed picture with the background, the sky, and all the embellishments that I love to do. So I decided to make it simple because the children, when they're painting and they see a tree come to life before their eyes. And it's like, wow, that is the goal that I want to do. So keeping that in mind, I have 4 pictures to show you. The first one here is a Ponderosa Pine, and it grows in the western states, very much in the mountain areas, and it loses its leaves on the bottom part as it ages, and then animals eat the seedlings and they eat the seeds from the cones. The trunk is very fire retardant because it's so thick, and also the seeds. And the needles are able to rejuvenate if there's a light fire, like from a lightning strike or something, it can rejuvenate. So the favorite thing that I like about it is the orange bark that's very fissured. And this tree was painted with carrots and broccoli. Next up is the Monterey Cypress. I see I've got to rush along here. Monterey Cypress only grows naturally in Monterey. They've planted it elsewhere and it gets taller and bigger, but it loses the contorted branches and the windswept look that you get from the ocean breezes, and that's what everybody loves about it. So this one was painted with French fries, the whole thing. So next up, we have the California fan palm. It's the only palm that grows in the Southwest, also in the deserts of California and Arizona. And what I like about it is the dead part that falls down from the tree is the animals make use of that, and that's what I like about it. And oh, I'm running out of time. And so this was painted with celery. Last up is the broccoli tree. That's everybody's favorite, and it originated in Sunnyvale at Hands on the Art, my first workshop. This is painted with French fries at the bottom and, of course, broccoli at the top. So those are the trees that I have, and I'll round out with other California natives like our state tree, the redwood tree, Buckeye, which we both like, and madrone and oaks, of course. So those will be the other trees in the workshop. So we're about out of time. So I want to thank you very much for being here.
It's been completely my pleasure.
30 seconds.
I just want to encourage people to put on some sturdy shoes and to take a bottle of water and go to the woods, walk slowly.
Yeah, do that, but also just go out in your backyard. I've got a woodpecker out there I really, really like, so go out and see what's there. Thanks for watching the show, and watch again.
You bet.